Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon. We've had a pretty tough day today. My appreciation for law enforcement and the sacrifices that they have to make has grown tremendously this afternoon. Happy to have you come today. On the evening of October 1st, 2017, Lafayette Police responded to a convenience store on Moss Street in Lafayette in regards to a shooting. A witness inside the convenience store who had gotten a ride to the store with Ian Howard was buying beer and alcohol when Ian Howard shot one person inside the store. Officer Michael Middlebrooks responded to the call, and the witness then saw Ian Howard shoot and kill Officer Middlebrooks. Ian Howard then ran outside, shot at other officers and civilians, then threw his handgun under a vehicle near the store and fled the scene. He was apprehended shortly thereafter, hiding in a drainage ditch near the store. After a Louisiana State Police investigation, the case was presented to a Lafayette grand jury who returned an indictment on October 11, 2017 against Ian Paul Howard for first-degree murder under our Louisiana statutes and for the killing of Officer Michael Middlebrooks, and a separate indictment for 3 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Ian Howard was appointed a team of defense attorneys who immediately began to file motions in the cases. The state prosecutors and the Louisiana Capital Assistance Center defense attorneys then argued many motions over the next few years, including a motion for sanity commission filed by the defendant. Howard was declared incompetent to proceed to trial in 2021, but his competency was restored after treatment by doctors, and the court ruled that he could proceed to trial after an April 19, 2023 hearing. The state and defense were working toward a March 24th trial date when, about 3 months ago, the state was approached by the defendant through his attorneys, who offered to plead guilty to all the charges if the state would remove the death penalty. Prosecutor Alan Haney met with the victim's family and presented them with the possibility of being able to bring this case to a close with a plea agreement. A number of conditions were demanded by the state, which include the defendant serving his entire sentence in a single cell at Angola, and the defendant agreeing not to ask for pardon or any type of relief that would result in his release from prison. I'd like to take this time to thank the previous administration. Alan Haney, Donald Connect, his staff worked really hard to bring the case to this date today. We give credit to the previous administration, and I give a lot of credit to my staff and Alan for bringing this case to a conclusion today. This will help the victims tremendously. Alan committed to the family that he would always keep them advised of these pleas or plea offers, and he did just that. Constant contact with these victims, and we think we brought justice to the victims today and justice to law enforcement. We appreciate the help of Chief Estorge in helping us throughout this case. I'd like to call on Alan now to explain to you the plea that was taken today. Alan?
I'd like to thank Mr. Landry for having the confidence in me to prosecute this case. You know, this is 6 years this past Sunday since the end of watch for Officer Middlebrook, and a few months ago, as Mr. Landry said, we were approached by the defense attorneys with an offer to plead to life in prison. After months of consultation with Officer Middlebrook's family and discussions about under what conditions we might take a plea to life, we ultimately came to what happened today, where the family of Officer Middlebrook and Ian Paul Howard and his attorneys, where we came to an agreement with the idea being that he is going to die in Angola. As Officer Middlebrook's mother, I think, eloquently said in her statement, this offers some bit of maybe the ending of a chapter in their lives, and the idea being that Officer Middlebrook's daughter, Violet, and his family can move on and again close this chapter in their life. I don't think this is necessarily closure, but to be able to close that chapter and to put to bed what this process is, this 6-year-long process, and to be able to move on. And we're not going to forget Officer Middlebrook. We're going to continue to remember him and what a great man he was. But after again months of consultation, this is the ultimate agreement where he will die in prison. But that I think that does a good job of explaining what the plea was.
Thank you, Alan. And thank you, Chief S. Storage, for your strong support throughout. Mayor President Guillory, thank you so much for all of your support. You've checked on me a few times about this particular case, and I do appreciate that. The plea agreement has been reached, and it was with the full support of the victim's family and Lafayette Police Chief Judith S. Storage. The plea offer was made not by the state, but by the defendant. The benefits of the guilty plea are that the victim's family will be able to put these 6 years of criminal litigation to rest, with the defendant agreeing to spend the rest of his life in prison. They do not have to wait to sit through a jury trial, another trial in the death penalty phase, and the inevitable appeals that would follow even a non-death penalty result. If the defendant were convicted and sentenced to death, they would have to wait on the appellate courts for another 12 to 15 years, in my estimation. They will not have to deal with the multitude of appeals that would be sure to come. Let me tell you this. The state was prepared for trial, and because we were prepared for trial, we ended up on this date with a guilty plea. The defendant realized that he had a significant risk of death penalty verdict and chose to spend the rest of his life in prison to eliminate that risk of death. The victim's family was informed and involved from the start of this case, and when presented with the opportunity to see the defendant spend the rest of his life in prison, they were unanimously in favor of that result. I repeat, they were unanimously in favor of that result. The District Attorney's Office negotiated a guilty plea in which the defendant has agreed that he will serve the remainder of his life in prison at Angola in a single cell with no direct contact with the public, and that he has agreed that he will not ever be allowed to apply for pardon, parole, commutation, probation, or suspension of sentence. Serving this life sentence in Angola, this defendant will not be in a position to kill anyone again, and the Middlebrooks family has obtained justice for the loss of Officer Michael Middlebrooks. We would be remiss if we did not take this chance to remember Officer Middlebrooks, a great family man, father, and police officer who was killed in the line of duty, responding to a shooting at a convenience store in Lafayette when he died. Every law enforcement officer in Acadiana, federal and state, leaves their home and family for every shift, knowing that they may not come home. Today, we remember Officer Middlebrooks for his ultimate sacrifice to keep our community safe. We ask God to please bless Officer Michael Middlebrook. Please bless his family. Bless all of the men and women of law enforcement. And dear Lord, God bless Acadiana, and God bless America. Thank you. Happy to respond to any questions anyone might have.
Question from Alan in the, what you call it, the factual basis.
Mhm.
I know you said you believe there was proof that he knew what he was doing.
Mhm.
And I think you mentioned, was it because he told the police, like he was trying to distract, saying it was somebody else and all? Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct. And when the police apprehended him, there are a number of comments that he made, just speaking out loud before the officers actually arrested him, where, in my mind, he was clearly blaming someone else, which, we believe is proof that he knew the difference between right and wrong, because he clearly knew what he did was wrong because he was blaming someone else for it. So that's why we believe that that we would defeat any insanity defense that he would have presented.
There was a person that was in the car with Ian Howard when he drove up and he ran to get alcohol. What happened to him? Was he one of them shot, or did he just hung out back there?
He ended up staying in the store whenever the surveillance shows that whenever Ian Howard started shooting at Craig Leopold, I think actually Mr. Edmond is walking outside, and at that point basically goes back in the store. So
And what was his name?
Kaninsky Edmond. If you look in my factual basis,
Okay.
it's in there.
Do you have a copy of it?
It's in the record. It's in the record.
And and as far as the other three people that were also hit by bullets, can you give us those names?
Yeah, so it was the attempted murder of Craig Leopold, who was the one that was cleaning up in the parking lot. The cashier that was behind the counter, his name is Amin Al-Fada, and that was another count of attempted murder. And then Officer Logan Signator, who was driving up at the scene as Ian Howard was coming out of the store and shot at him, he would be the other count of attempted murder.
Mr. Alfada,
Mhm.
was he the owner or he worked?
No, he just worked there.
And today you guys said that justice was served. How come? Because you guys took the plea deal over the death penalty. So just elaborate on that for me.
So I don't know if you want to ask me or if Mr. Don wants to answer that question.
We reached this agreement with the defense, but only after discussing it with the family more than one time, discussed it with Chief Estorge. We're very satisfied with the results. We think justice has been brought to the family and to the community. We're very satisfied with the plea.
Can you elaborate? Can you tell me the demeanor of the family when you guys met and spoke with them about this?
Well, as you would expect, I mean, it was always a difficult discussion whenever we met with the family. It's a great loss for them. After sitting through this hearing this afternoon, I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to do this presser, because it really showed me, I mean, these police officers leave their houses every morning, and they go out and protect us, and they do a great job for us, and they don't really know if they're coming home. So when talking to those officers and talking to the chief and talking to the family, we always keep that in mind. As I said when I opened up this presser, my respect for the police, the men and women of law enforcement, has grown even more today, if that could be possible. I've always respected them and respected the fact that they keep our community safe and keep us safe. But after today's hearing, it's grown even more.
Chief Estorge, I mean, you worked with Michael Middlebrook. Do you know him well? Can you tell us something about him?
I did work with him. He was a very kind soul. He would reach out to the community and help. He was commended multiple times for different acts of kindness, and he was the epitome of a community-oriented officer.
And just for clarification, what's the sentence again? 150 years plus life in prison, correct?
No, it's 50-year sentence on each attempt that are concurrent, so it's a 50-year sentence that's consecutive to the life sentence.
Everybody's good?
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. Claire, you good? Thank y'all so much for coming. We appreciate it.